The moment I saw the sniper rifle gleaming in the back seat of the black SUV parked outside my house, I knew this HOA dispute over illegal chickens was about to turn deadly. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe if you want more Karen and HOA stories. The notice arrived at 6 in the morning, slipped under my door. Remove the illegal chickens by Friday or face consequences. I smirked, sipping lukewarm coffee. If only Mrs. Khan, the HOA president, knew her illegal chickens were actually $200,000 surveillance drones disguised as Rhode Island Reds. My cover as a retired teacher with a backyard coop was perfect until today. I stepped outside, squinting at the sun rising over Maplewood Estates. The neighborhood was too quiet, no kids biking, no dogs barking, just the hum of AC units. Rules kept life sterile here, rules like Section 12.4, no livestock, poultry, or unauthorized agriculture. Mrs. Khan's latest obsession. She had been on a crusade ever since she caught Mr. Ahmed smoking near the playground last month, claiming it violated community health standards. Across the street, she stood on her porch, gray bun clipboard, lips pursed like she'd swallowed a lemon. "Good morning, Mrs. Khan," I called, waving. She marched over heels, clicking against the pavement. Her eyes narrowed behind thick glasses. "Those birds violate the covenant again." I nodded, trying to look innocent. "They're the rap therapy?" she snapped, cutting me off mid-sentence. "This isn't a farm, Mr. Ali, and that rooster is a hen. Calm down." Her face reddened even more, if that was possible. "Friday, or we'll call the authorities." Behind her, a black SUV idled, parked conspicuously close to my driveway. Two men in suits watched, their faces obscured by tinted windows. Not FBI, I thought, too obvious, probably private contractors hired by someone higher up. Someone who didn't want me digging deeper into the sleepy little suburb's secrets. That night, I fed the chickens via remote control. Their cameras scanned the neighborhood, capturing everything. Mr. Ahmed sneaking a cigarette behind his garage, teens climbing the fence near the clubhouse, Mrs. Khan pacing her living room, muttering to herself. The feed flickered for a moment, then stabilized, but something felt off. My radio crackled, breaking the silence. "Eagle, they're on to you, pull out." I crushed the message underfoot, grinding it into the carpet. Pull out? When the real mission had just begun. Whoever these people were, they weren't going to scare me away so easily. The next morning, I found a note pinned to the coop door, handwritten in blocky, uneven letters. "Stop lying, we know what you're hiding." It wasn't Mrs. Khan's handwriting, too sloppy, too rushed. I glanced at the SUV still parked down the street, its engine cold, but the passenger seat held a faint outline. A sniper's rifle gleaming faintly in the sunlight. Inside the house, I reviewed the footage from the previous night, frame by frame, searching for clues. At exactly 11:47 p.m., one of the chickens captured movement near the edge of the property. A shadowy figure crouched low, moving silently toward the back gate. They paused for a moment, looking directly at the camera before slipping out of view. Whoever they were, they knew I was watching them. The shadowy figure haunted me. I replayed the footage over and over, but their face was always hidden under a hood. Whoever they were, they moved like a ghost, slipping through cracks in the fence, disappearing into shadows. My hands shook as I zoomed in on the timestamp, 11:47 p.m. That was when the coop's feed flickered. Someone had tampered with it. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, scanning the backyard. The air smelled damp, leaves crunched underfoot. Everything looked normal, the fence unbroken, the gate locked. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. Even the cicadas seemed muted tonight. Near the edge of the property, I spotted fresh footprints pressed deep into the mud. Boots size 12, maybe bigger. Not Mrs. Khan's tiny heels. These belonged to someone stronger, faster, dangerous. Back inside, I called HQ. "This isn't just an HOA dispute anymore," I said, keeping my voice low. "Someone's watching me." Static crackled before a voice replied, "Stay alert, Eagle. Your cover might be blown." Great advice, except staying alert wouldn't stop whoever was out there from coming after me again. By morning, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Mrs. Khan stood at her gate, barking orders to a group of residents holding clipboards. They were planning some kind of emergency meeting, probably about my chickens. Across the street, Mr. Ahmed leaned against his mailbox, pretending not to listen while sneaking glances toward my house. Kids whispered behind trees pointing at my driveway where the black SUV still sat idling, its engine cold, now abandoned. I decided to attend the meeting, partly to keep up appearances, partly because ignoring Mrs. Khan would only make things worse. She loved attention, especially when she could play the victim. As I walked into the community center, all eyes turned to me. Whispers filled the room like static electricity. Illegal chickens, one woman muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Another man nodded, adding, "And what about that noise last night?" "Noise? What noise?" Mrs. Khan banged her gavel, calling the meeting to order. Her face lit up with self-importance as she announced the agenda. Item 1. Mr. Ali's violation of Section 12.4 regarding unauthorized livestock. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "What about the rooster?" Others laughed nervously. Before I could defend myself, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Maybe we should focus on bigger issues." It was Zara, the mediator board member, who often tried to calm Mrs. Khan's tantrums. She stood near the back, arms crossed, looking calm but sharp-eyed. Like, why is there a strange car parked outside Mr. Ali's house? Head swiveled toward the window where the black SUV remained parked unmoved since yesterday. Mrs. Khan faltered for a moment, then recovered quickly. "That's unrelated," she snapped, glaring at Zara. But the damage was done. People started asking questions, murmuring theories. Was it a stalker? A burglar? Or something more sinister? After the meeting ended, I lingered, pretending to chat casually with neighbors while keeping an eye on the SUV. Nobody claimed it. No plates, no markings, nothing to identify its owner. Just sitting there like a silent threat. Later that evening, I received another message, this time handwritten, slid under my door. "Leave before it's too late." Simple words but chilling. Leave what? The neighborhood? The mission? Both? Whoever wrote it knew exactly how to push my buttons. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. While reviewing footage from the drones, I noticed something odd. A reflection in one of the windows across the street. Zooming in revealed a face staring back at me. It wasn't mine. And it wasn't Mrs. Khan's either. It was Zara. Why was Zara watching me? Hadn't she been defending me at the meeting earlier? Or was that just part of her act? Determined to find answers, I dug deeper, starting with Zara's background. Turns out she hadn't lived here long, moving in 6 months ago without much explanation. Neighbors described her as friendly, helpful, always willing to mediate disputes. Too perfect, maybe. Meanwhile, tensions escalated. Mrs. Khan filed a formal complaint against me, demanding immediate removal of the chickens. Flyers appeared overnight, plastered across lampposts and mailboxes. "Save our community from chaos," complete with a crude drawing of a chicken wearing sunglasses labeled "Spy." Things took a darker turn when I discovered someone had broken into my shed, leaving tools scattered everywhere. Nothing valuable was missing, but the lock was busted wide open. A warning shot fired directly at me. That night, sleep eluded me. Every creak, every rustle outside made me jolt awake. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps crunching gravel near the fence. Grabbing my flashlight, I crept outside, heart pounding. The figure from the footage stood silhouetted against the moonlight, hood pulled low over their face. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I expected. They didn't answer, instead turning to leave. I lunged forward, grabbing their arm, only to feel fabric tear away in my hand. A piece of the hoodie sleeve remained clutched in my fist while the figure vanished into the darkness. Inside, I examined the fabric closely. High-quality, waterproof material designed for stealth operations. This wasn't some random vandal, it was professional work. Which meant whoever was targeting me had resources, connections, possibly even government backing. As dawn broke, I realized one thing clearly. Escaping this mess wouldn't be easy. Maplewood Estates held secrets far bigger than illegal chickens or nosy neighbors. Secrets I needed to uncover before it was too late. For me, and maybe for everyone living here. The piece of hoodie fabric felt heavy in my hand, like it carried more weight than just its material. I turned it over, examining every inch under the dim kitchen light. It was black, waterproof, and reinforced with fine stitching along the seams. Definitely not something you'd pick up at Walmart. This wasn't amateur work. Whoever wore this knew what they were doing. And they weren't here to mess around. I placed the fabric on the table next to a map of Maplewood Estates that I'd been marking with red dots. Locations where strange things had happened, the SUV sightings, the footprints near my fence, Zara's reflection in the window. Patterns began to emerge, but none made sense yet. Something bigger was brewing beneath the surface of this quiet neighborhood, and I was standing right in the middle of it. Morning came too fast, sunlight streaming through the blinds, waking me from a restless sleep. Outside birds chirped, or rather drones whirred pretending to be birds. Mrs. Khan's voice echoed down the street yelling at someone about lawn care violations. Life went on as usual for everyone else except me. For me, normalcy had shattered days ago, replaced by paranoia and unanswered questions. At breakfast, I decided to confront Zara. She'd been acting suspicious ever since she mentioned the SUV during the meeting. Plus, her face in the window couldn't have been a coincidence. I needed answers, even if it meant risking exposure. Zara lived 3 houses down in a modest 2-story home surrounded by neatly trimmed hedges. Her car, a silver sedan, sat in the driveway clean and polished like everything else in this neighborhood obsessed with appearances. I knocked on her door twice before she answered, looking surprised to see me. "Mr. Ali? Is everything okay?" she asked, stepping aside to let me in. Her tone was calm, friendly, almost rehearsed. Inside the house smelled faintly of lavender candles burning softly on side tables. Photos lined the walls, family portraits, mostly, though something about them seemed off. The faces looked familiar but not quite real, like stock images edited together. "I need to talk to you," I said, cutting straight to the point. "About what happened last night." Her smile faltered for a split second before returning brighter than before. "Last night? I don't know what you mean." "Don't play dumb, Zara," I snapped, sharper than intended. "I saw you in the window watching me. And now this." I pulled out the torn piece of hoodie fabric, holding it up between us. "This belongs to whoever broke into my shed. Care to explain?" For a moment she froze, staring at the fabric wide-eyed. Then her expression shifted, switching from shock to cold calculation. Without warning, she grabbed my wrist, twisting it hard enough to make me drop the fabric. Before I could react, she slammed the door shut, locking it behind her. "Listen carefully, Mr. Ali," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "You're in way over your head. Those chickens of yours, they aren't just surveillance tools anymore. They've attracted attention from people who don't take kindly to spies poking around their business. If you want to live, stop asking questions." With that, she shoved me toward the door, opening it briefly to push me outside. As I stumbled onto her porch, I caught a glimpse of something inside. An emblem pinned to her jacket. A golden eagle clutching a shield. CIA insignia. So Zara wasn't just another neighbor trying to keep peace in the community. She was part of whatever operation had infiltrated Maplewood Estates. But why? What could possibly warrant such secrecy in a place like this? Back at home, I tried piecing together what little information I had. Zara's warning replayed in my mind over and over again. Stop asking questions. Easy for her to say. By now, curiosity had taken hold of me, digging its claws deeper with each passing hour. That afternoon, I attended another HOA meeting, this time called by Mrs. Khan herself. The agenda? Addressing ongoing disturbances caused by certain residents. Translation: me. As expected, accusations flew left and right, ranging from noise complaints to allegations of property damage. One elderly woman even claimed my rooster woke her up at dawn, crowing loudly despite knowing full well it was a drone program to stay silent. Through all the chaos, one person remained eerily quiet: Zara. Sitting near the back, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like a hawk searching for prey. When Mrs. Khan finally turned the discussion toward voting on whether or not to evict me, Zara stood up, clearing her throat. "We need to focus on facts, not rumors," she said, firmly silencing the crowd. "Until we have concrete evidence proving Mr. Ali violated any rules, we shouldn't jump to conclusions." Her defense caught me off guard, especially after our earlier encounter. Was she playing both sides, manipulating events to suit her own agenda? Or did she genuinely believe keeping me around served some greater purpose? Either way, her intervention bought me time, buying precious hours to dig deeper into the mystery surrounding this neighborhood. Later that evening, I received yet another message, this time delivered electronically via encrypted email sent directly to my secure inbox. The subject line read, Cease operations immediately. Opening it revealed a single sentence typed in bold letters. Your cover is compromised. Extraction team en route. Extracted? No way. Not until I uncovered the truth. Deleting the email, I prepared myself for what lay ahead. If they wanted me out, they'd have to drag me kicking and screaming. As darkness fell, I activated the drone's night vision mode, sending them soaring silently above Maplewood Estates. Their cameras captured movement near the clubhouse. A group of men dressed in tactical gear moving swiftly through shadows. They weren't local police or FBI agents. Their uniforms bore no insignias. Mercenaries, maybe hired hands working for whoever controlled this operation. One thing became clear. Whoever these people were, they weren't here to negotiate. They were here to eliminate threats, starting with me. But they underestimated one crucial factor. I wasn't alone anymore. Over the past few days, cracks had begun forming in their perfect facade. Secrets spilled, whispers spread, distrust festered among neighbors. Even Mrs. Khan started questioning authority, albeit reluctantly blaming everyone except herself for the growing tension. Using the data collected by my drones, I created a detailed timeline connecting events leading up to this moment. Each dot represented a clue, each line traced a pattern revealing fragments of a larger conspiracy unfolding right under our noses. At its center stood Zara, not merely an observer but a key player orchestrating chaos from within. Armed with newfound knowledge, I devised a plan, risky but necessary. Tomorrow I would expose the truth, forcing Zara and her allies into the open. Whether it ended in triumph or disaster remained uncertain, but one thing was guaranteed. Life in Maplewood Estates would never be the same again. The next morning dawned gray and heavy, with clouds threatening rain. I stood in my kitchen staring at the map covered in red dots. Each dot told a story, a clue pointing towards something bigger than I'd imagined when I first set foot in Maplewood Estates. My plan was risky, but sitting idle wasn't an option anymore. Secrets had spilled into the open, cracks widened between neighbors, trust shattered like glass. It was time to push harder, force answers out of the shadows no matter the cost. I started by spreading misinformation, planting seeds of doubt among the residents. Flyers appeared overnight, taped to mailboxes and lampposts. Who's really watching you? Beneath the headline was a grainy photo taken by one of my drones showing Zara meeting with the men in tactical gear near the clubhouse. The image wasn't clear enough to identify faces, but it raised questions. Questions people couldn't ignore. By noon, whispers rippled through the neighborhood. Mrs. Khan paced her porch, muttering angrily while clutching her clipboard. Mr. Ahmed leaned against his mailbox, pretending not to care, but his eyes darted nervously toward Zara's house. Kids gathered around street corners, sharing theories about spies and secret agents. Even the usually quiet widow, Mrs. Faruqi, ventured outside, shaking her head disapprovingly. Tension crackled in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Zara didn't step outside all day. Her curtains remained drawn, blinds closed tight. Whatever she'd been planning had hit a snag thanks to my little stunt. Still, I knew better than to celebrate too soon. People like her always had backup plans, contingencies designed to neutralize threats before they spiraled out of control. Around mid-afternoon, a delivery truck pulled up outside my house, its engine rumbling loudly. A man in a brown uniform stepped out carrying a package wrapped in plain brown paper. He glanced around suspiciously before knocking on my door. "Sign here, please," he said, handing me a clipboard. His accent sounded vaguely Eastern European, though his demeanor gave nothing away. I scribbled a fake signature, then took the package inside, setting it on the counter. Something felt off about it, too light for its size, no return address. Carefully, I opened it using scissors, keeping my distance just in case. Inside lay a small device resembling a USB drive along with a folded note. The note read, "Plug this into your computer if you want to live." My stomach churned uneasily. Was this a trap? Or a lifeline? Either way, ignoring it wasn't an option. Not when survival might depend on it. Plugging the device into my laptop, I braced myself for whatever came next. A video popped up, automatically playing without sound. Grainy footage showed a group of men seated around a table, their faces blurred except for one. Zara. She spoke animatedly, gesturing wildly as others nodded in agreement. Behind them hung a large banner bearing the same golden eagle emblem I'd seen earlier. This wasn't just some rogue operation. It was sanction-backed by powers far beyond anything I'd anticipated. As the video continued, subtitles appeared translating snippets of their conversation. Subject poses significant risk to Project Redtail. Terminate if necessary. Assets deployed tomorrow night. Project Redtail. So that's what they called it. Whatever it was, it involved surveillance, manipulation, control. And now I knew too much, which made me expendable. Deleting the file, I grabbed my phone, dialing HQ. Static greeted me, followed by a robotic voice. Secure line disconnected. No further assistance available. Great. Just great. They were cutting ties, abandoning me to clean up their mess. With no backup coming, I turned to plan B. Exposing everything publicly. If I couldn't fight them alone, maybe dragging them into the light would level the playing field. Using the data collected by my drones, I compiled a dossier detailing every suspicious activity, every connection, every piece of evidence tying Zara and her crew to Project Redtail. Once finished, I uploaded it to multiple secure servers, ensuring it couldn't be deleted or traced back to me. But there was still one problem: timing. When should I release the information? Too early, and they'd shut me down before anyone noticed. Too late, and... well, let's just say I didn't want to find out what happened if they caught me first. That evening, I attended another HOA meeting, this time called by none other than Zara herself. She stood at the front of the room, calm and composed despite the storm brewing around her. Residents packed the space, overflowing with anger, frustration, fear. Someone had leaked rumors claiming the neighborhood was under surveillance, sparking outrage. Accusations flew left and right, fingers pointed at anyone remotely suspicious, including me. When it was my turn to speak, I stepped forward, holding up the printed photos of Zara meeting with the mercenaries. Gasps echoed through the room as murmurs turned into shouts. This woman, I said, pointing directly at Zara, isn't who she claims to be. She's part of something bigger, something dangerous. Ask yourselves why strangers are patrolling our streets, breaking into homes, spying on us. Why is there a black SUV parked outside my house? Why does everyone suddenly feel unsafe? Zara's face hardened, her mask slipping for a brief moment, revealing the predator beneath. Without hesitation, she countered, launching into a rehearsed speech about paranoia, conspiracy theories, how easy it was to manipulate facts, distort truths, create chaos where none existed. Some nodded, agreeing with her words, clinging desperately to normalcy, desperate to believe nothing was wrong. Others looked uncertain, torn between fear and denial. Then came the twist I hadn't foreseen. Mrs. Khan stepped forward, her voice trembling yet resolute. Enough, she declared, slamming her gavel down hard enough to silence the room. All eyes turned to her, including mine. For once, she didn't look angry or self-righteous. She looked scared. We trusted you, she said, addressing Zara. All these years we believed you wanted what's best for us. But now... She hesitated, glancing at the photos clutched in my hand. Now I don't know what to think anymore. Her words sent shockwaves through the crowd, shattering whatever fragile alliance Zara had built. One by one, neighbors began questioning her motives, demanding answers, refusing to accept vague explanations or dismissive reassurances. Cornered, Zara did the only thing she could do. She bolted, rushing toward the exit, pushing past stunned residents. Without thinking, I chased after her, sprinting through the parking lot, dodging cars' headlights, blinding me momentarily. Ahead, Zara climbed into her silver sedan, revving the engine before speeding off, tires screeching against asphalt. Heart pounding, I jumped into my car, following close behind, determined not to lose her. The chase led us deeper into Maplewood Estates, winding through narrow streets lined with identical houses bathed in eerie orange glow from streetlights. Twice she tried losing me, taking sharp turns, accelerating dangerously fast. Each time I stayed close, refusing to fall behind. Finally, she skidded to a stop near the edge of the property, pulling into an abandoned warehouse surrounded by chain-link fences topped with barbed wire. Killing the engine, she disappeared inside, leaving the door slightly ajar. Taking a deep breath, I followed, cautiously stepping into darkness broken only by faint moonlight filtering through cracked windows. Inside, rows of crates filled with equipment stacked high against walls labeled with cryptic code symbols I didn't recognize. In the center stood Zara, arms crossed, glaring daggers at me. You really don't know when to quit, do you? She spat, venom dripping from her voice. I could ask you the same thing. I shot back, matching her tone. What's Project Redtail, Zara? Who are you working for? She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. People like you never do. People like me? I repeated incredulously. People who value truth over lies, freedom over control? Yeah, guess you're right. We're different, all right. For a moment, neither of us moved, locked in a silent standoff, tension crackling like electricity. Then footsteps echoed behind me, growing louder, closer, until they stopped abruptly. Turning slowly, I saw them, the men in tactical gear, weapons drawn, aiming straight at me. Drop whatever you're holding, one commanded, his voice cold, emotionless. Outnumbered, outgunned, I raised my hands, surrendering. For now. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The warehouse felt colder than it should have been given the humid night outside. My breath misted faintly in the air as I stood, frozen hands raised above my head. The men in tactical gear surrounded me, their weapons trained on me like predators circling prey. Behind them, Zara watched, her arms still crossed, face unreadable. She wasn't smiling, but there was something almost satisfied about her stance, as if she'd expected this moment all along. One of the men stepped forward, his boots crunching against broken glass scattered across the floor. He wore a black balaclava covering most of his face, leaving only his eyes visible, sharp and calculating. You've caused enough trouble, he growled, his voice low and gravelly. Time to end it. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse, startling everyone. Instinctively, I ducked just as a metal beam came tumbling down, narrowly missing one of the mercenaries. Chaos erupted, shouts bouncing off the walls as more objects fell from above. Tools, crates, pieces of rusted machinery raining down like debris from an explosion. Whoever or whatever was causing this clearly wanted to disrupt their plans. Taking advantage of the confusion, I lunged sideways, diving behind a stack of crates for cover. Bullets whizzed past, embedding themselves into the wood, splinters flying everywhere. My heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I scrambled deeper into the shadows, searching for an escape route. Another crash, louder this time, followed by footsteps overhead. Someone else was here, someone not part of Zara's crew. Through the chaos, I caught glimpses of movement. A figure darting between beams, silhouetted briefly against the dim light filtering through cracked windows. Whoever they were, they weren't aiming at me. Instead, they targeted the mercenaries, systematically dismantling their formation, forcing them to retreat toward the center of the room. Zara shouted orders, her calm demeanor cracking under pressure. Find him, she screamed, pointing wildly at the upper levels. Her voice betrayed panic, desperation creeping in where confidence once reigned supreme. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked vulnerable, unsure of what to do next. I used the distraction to slip further away, creeping along the edges of the warehouse, staying low, avoiding detection. Ahead, I spotted a narrow staircase leading up to a catwalk overlooking the main floor. If I could reach it, maybe I'd gain a better vantage point, figure out who was helping me. And why. Halfway up the stairs, I froze, hearing voices below. 2 mercenaries had taken position near the base, guns drawn, scanning the area cautiously. Their flashlights swept back and forth, illuminating patches of darkness briefly before moving on. Holding my breath, I pressed myself flat against the wall, hoping they wouldn't look up. They didn't. After a tense moment, they moved on, disappearing into the maze of crates and equipment. Releasing a shaky exhale, I continued upward, finally reaching the catwalk. From here, I had a clear view of the entire warehouse. The mercenaries regrouping near the center, Zara pacing anxiously, shouting commands that no one seemed to be following anymore. And then there was the mysterious figure, still moving fluidly, evading capture, taking out enemies with precision strikes, quick, efficient, silent. It wasn't until the figure paused briefly near a shaft of moonlight that I recognized them. Mr. Ahmed. Yes, Mr. Ahmed. The same mild-mannered neighbor who sneaked cigarettes behind his garage and pretended not to care about HOA drama. Except now he wasn't pretending anymore. Gone was the timid demeanor, replaced by a steely focus, muscles coiled tight, ready to strike again if necessary. In his hand he held a crowbar, glinting dully in the dim light, bloodstains darkening its curved edge. Clearly he'd already put it to good use. For a split second our eyes met across the distance. Recognition flickered in his gaze, followed by a subtle nod. A signal telling me to stay put, let him handle things. Then he vanished back into the shadows, melting away like smoke. Meanwhile, Zara's frustration boiled over into outright rage. Abandoning any semblance of control, she grabbed one of the mercenaries by the collar, screaming directly into his face. "Do your job or I'll make sure you regret it." Whatever authority she thought she wielded was crumbling, rapidly slipping through her fingers like sand. Back on the catwalk, I debated my next move. Staying hidden might keep me safe temporarily, but sooner or later someone would find me. Besides, I couldn't leave Mr. Ahmed alone to fight these guys. Not when I knew exactly how dangerous they were. Deciding quickly, I crept forward, keeping low, using the railing for balance as I made my way toward the far end of the catwalk. Below me, the mercenaries had formed a defensive circle, backs pressed together, weapons raised, scanning every direction nervously. They looked jumpy, edgy, unsure of where the next attack would come from. Good. That meant Mr. Ahmed was doing his job, keeping them off balance, buying us time. Reaching the end of the catwalk, I spotted another staircase spiraling downward toward ground level. It led straight into the heart of the warehouse, dangerously close to where the mercenaries stood huddled together. Still, it was the fastest way to join Mr. Ahmed, assuming I didn't get shot in the process. Taking a deep breath, I descended slowly, step by step, praying the creaky metal wouldn't give me away. Halfway down, I heard voices again, this time closer, sharper, urgent. Two mercenaries were arguing heatedly, blaming each other for losing track of the intruder, accusing each other of incompetence. Their tempers flared, anger masking caution, making them careless. Perfect timing. Dropping the last few steps, I landed silently, rolling to absorb the impact before springing upright, knife in hand. Before either mercenary could react, I struck, slicing cleanly through tendons in one man's wrist, sending his gun clattering to the floor, useless. The second spun around, raising his weapon, but I was faster, driving the blade upward into his shoulder, forcing him to drop it too. Both collapsed, groaning, clutching their wounds, writhing in pain. Behind me, Zara screamed and raged beyond reason, charging forward, recklessly abandoning strategy altogether. Without hesitation, I hurled the knife end over end, watching it embed itself hilt deep in her thigh, bringing her crashing down hard onto the concrete floor. She cried out, clutching at the wound, tears streaming down her face, mixing with sweat and dirt. For the first time, she looked truly human, stripped of her mask of invincibility, exposed for what she really was. Scared, desperate, cornered. But we weren't done yet. Not even close. Across the warehouse, Mr. Ahmed emerged from the shadows, breathing heavily, sweat soaking through his shirt. His crowbar hung loosely in one hand, dripping fresh blood onto the floor. Despite everything, he managed a small smile, nodding approvingly at me. "Took you long enough," he said, his tone teasing despite the gravity of the situation. "Nice entrance yourself," I replied, gesturing vaguely at the destruction surrounding us. Together we turned back toward the remaining mercenaries, who now realized they were outnumbered, outmatched. Some dropped their weapons, surrendering immediately, while others tried fleeing only to trip over fallen comrades or stumble blindly into walls. Within minutes, the warehouse fell silent save for the occasional groan of injured men lying sprawled across the floor. Exhausted, I leaned against a nearby crate, sliding down until I sat slumped against it, staring blankly at nothing. Mr. Ahmed joined me, sinking down beside me, equally drained. Neither of us spoke for a long moment, content to simply catch our breath, recover from the adrenaline rush that had carried us this far. Finally, I broke the silence. "So, care to explain?" He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Not quite yet. First, we need to clean this mess up before anyone notices." "Clean it up," I repeated, incredulously, gesturing at the carnage surrounding us. "How exactly do you propose we do that?" "Don't worry," he said, standing up, grimacing slightly as he stretched sore muscles. "I've got connections. People who owe me favors. By sunrise, this place will look like nothing ever happened. And then, he continued, meeting my gaze steadily, we talk. About Project Redtail. About Zara. About everything." With that, he disappeared into the shadows again, leaving me alone amidst the wreckage, wondering how much more complicated this nightmare could possibly get. By the time Mr. Ahmed returned, dawn had begun creeping over the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. The warehouse looked different now. Less menacing, bathed in soft morning light filtering through cracks in the walls. Most of the mercenaries were gone, dragged away by unseen hands, leaving behind only faint scuff marks on the concrete floor where their bodies had lain. Zara was still there, though slumped unconscious against a crate, her leg bandaged hastily, blood seeping through the makeshift dressing. She groaned softly, stirring, but didn't wake up. Mr. Ahmed moved quickly and efficiently, directing a small group of shadowy figures who appeared out of nowhere. They wore plain clothes, no uniforms or insignias, nothing to identify them as anything other than ordinary people. Yet they worked with military precision, dismantling equipment, loading crates into unmarked vans, erasing evidence faster than I could process what was happening. "Who are these people?" I asked, finally finding my voice after watching silently for several minutes. "My team," Mr. Ahmed replied without looking at me, his focus entirely on supervising the cleanup operation. "Not everyone in this neighborhood is who they seem to be. That much was obvious. What wasn't clear was why he'd kept his involvement hidden until now. Why hadn't he stepped forward sooner? How long had he known about Project Redtail and Zara's role in it?" When the last van pulled away, Mr. Ahmed turned to face me, crossing his arms over his chest. His expression softened slightly, though his eyes remained sharp, calculating. "All right," he said, exhaling deeply. "Let's talk." We sat down near the entrance, sunlight streaming in, warming the cold concrete beneath us. For a moment neither of us spoke, content to simply sit there listening to birds chirping outside, signaling the start of another day. Then Mr. Ahmed leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You already know part of the story," he began, his tone measured, deliberate. "About the surveillance drones disguised as chickens, about Zara being more than just a mediator. But what you don't know is how deep this goes." I nodded, urging him to continue. "Project Redtail isn't just about spying on residents," he explained, pausing briefly, as if choosing his words carefully. "It's about control. Manipulating communities, shaping opinions, influencing decisions, all under the guise of maintaining order. Maplewood Estates is one of many test sites scattered across the country, each chosen for its isolation, predictable behavior patterns, ease of manipulation." "And Zara?" I prompted, wanting answers specifically about her. "She's their puppet master," Mr. Ahmed replied bitterly. "Or at least she was supposed to be. Recruited straight out of training, given carte blanche to run operations however she saw fit. Problem is she got greedy, sloppy, started making mistakes. Like targeting you." "But why me?" I asked, confused. "I'm nobody, just a guy living quietly, minding my own business." "Not exactly," Mr. Ahmed countered, shaking his head. "You're former CIA, remember? Someone with your skills, background, experience doesn't retire completely. Not really. You may have left the agency, but they never stopped keeping tabs on you. When you moved here, setting up shop with those chickens, it raised red flags. Suddenly you became both asset and liability, depending on whose side you decided to take." I processed this information slowly, pieces falling into place, forming a clearer picture of the web entangling me. If Mr. Ahmed was telling the truth, then my arrival in Maplewood Estates hadn't been coincidence either. Someone somewhere had deliberately pushed me into position, knowing full well I'd stumble onto something big eventually. "So what happens now?" I asked, finally breaking the silence. Mr. Ahmed hesitated before answering. "That depends on you. We can end this here, walk away, pretend none of it ever happened. Or..." He trailed off, letting the implication hang heavy between us. "Or what?" I pressed, sensing there was more he wasn't saying. "Or we expose everything," he finished, meeting my gaze steadily. "Blow the lid off Project Redtail, reveal the truth to the world. Bring down everyone involved, including Zara." The weight of his words settled over me, pressing down hard enough to make breathing difficult. Exposing the truth sounded noble, heroic even, but also dangerous, reckless, potentially deadly. People like Zara wouldn't go down without a fight. They'd retaliate fiercely, targeting anyone brave or foolish enough to challenge them directly. Still, despite the risks, one thing was certain. Staying silent wasn't an option. Not anymore. "I'm in," I said firmly, surprising myself with how resolute my voice sounded. Mr. Ahmed nodded, unsurprised yet satisfied all the same. "Good," he said, standing up, brushing dust off his jeans. "Because we're running out of time." Before I could ask what he meant, a loud siren wailed, piercing the calm morning air, shattering whatever fragile peace remained. Outside, vehicles roared, engines revving, tires squealing as multiple cars sped toward the warehouse, kicking up clouds of dust, obscuring visibility. Whatever reprieve we'd enjoyed was officially over. "Back up," Mr. Ahmed muttered grimly, pulling out his phone, typing furiously. They must have traced Zara's signal, figured out where she went missing. Great, I muttered, sarcastically scrambling to my feet. Just when things couldn't get worse. Oh, they can always get worse, Mr. Ahmed shot back darkly, grabbing my arm, dragging me toward the back exit. Come on, we need to move now. We ran, dodging debris, leaping over fallen beams, barely avoiding tripping over loose cables snaking across the floor. Behind us, shouts echoed, growing louder, closer, accompanied by boots pounding against concrete. Whoever was chasing us wasn't wasting time. They knew exactly where we were heading, straight for us with single-minded determination. Reaching the rear door, Mr. Ahmed yanked it open, revealing a narrow alleyway lined with dumpsters overflowing with trash. Without hesitation, we sprinted forward, weaving through obstacles, putting distance between ourselves and our pursuers. Ahead, a chain-link fence blocked our path, topped with razor wire glinting ominously in the sunlight. There! Mr. Ahmed shouted, pointing toward a gap partially hidden behind a stack of pallets. Together we squeezed through, emerging on the other side, gasping for breath, hearts racing wildly, adrenaline pumping through our veins. For a moment we thought we'd made it free and clear. Then a familiar voice called out, stopping us dead in our tracks. Going somewhere? Turning slowly, we found ourselves face to face with Mrs. Khan, clipboard clutched tightly in one hand, pepper spray dangling ominously from the other. Her lips curled into a smug smile, triumph gleaming in her narrowed eyes. Looks like we weren't done fighting just yet. Mrs. Khan stood there like a gatekeeper to hell, her clipboard raised like a weapon and her pepper spray glinting ominously in the sunlight. Her smug smile widened as she took a step closer, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. For someone who spent most of her time obsessing over HOA rules and regulations, she looked disturbingly comfortable wielding authority in this moment. Like she'd been waiting years for an opportunity to flex her power beyond garden inspections and noise complaints. You didn't think it would be that easy, did you? She asked, her voice dripping with mock concern. Running around causing trouble, snooping where you don't belong. Honestly, Mr. Ali, I expected better from you. I glanced at Mr. Ahmed, who seemed equally stunned by this unexpected twist. Mrs. Khan wasn't just some nosy neighbor enforcing covenant violations anymore. She was part of whatever operation had infiltrated Maplewood Estates. But how deep did her involvement go? Was she working directly under Zara, or was she playing her own game entirely? Mrs. Khan, I said cautiously, keeping my tone neutral, hoping to buy us time. What exactly are you doing here? She chuckled dryly, shaking her head as if amused by my ignorance. Oh, please spare me the innocent act. You've been poking your nose into things you shouldn't have from the very beginning. Did you really think no one would notice? Before I could respond, she turned her attention to Mr. Ahmed, narrowing her eyes suspiciously. And you? She spat venomously. I should have known you'd side with him after all those late-night meetings, sneaking around pretending to care about community harmony. Pathetic. Mr. Ahmed stiffened visibly, his jaw tightening, but he didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he shifted slightly, positioning himself between Mrs. Khan and me, subtly shielding me from any potential attack. Smart move, considering the pepper spray dangling dangerously close to her fingertips. Now then, Mrs. Khan continued, clasping her hands together businesslike, despite the absurdity of the situation. Let's not waste any more time, shall we? Hand yourselves over quietly, or... She let the threat hang unfinished, leaving plenty of room for our imaginations to fill in the blanks. Fat chance of that happening. Or what? I challenged, unable to resist pushing back, even though every instinct screamed at me to stay quiet, play along, wait for an opening. You'll call the police? File another complaint about illegal chickens? Come on, Mrs. Khan, give us some credit. Her smile faltered for a split second before returning sharper than before. Very well, she said coldly, raising the pepper spray threateningly. Have it your way. But before she could press the trigger, a loud crash echoed through the alleyway, startling all three of us. Turning toward the sound, we saw a figure emerge from behind a dumpster, moving swiftly with purpose. It was Zara, limping heavily, favoring her injured leg, but still managing to look intimidating as ever. Blood soaked through her bandage, staining her pants dark red, yet she showed no signs of weakness, pain only fueling her determination. This ends now, she declared, her voice hoarse but commanding. Mrs. Khan hesitated, momentarily caught off guard by Zara's sudden appearance. In that brief window of confusion, Mr. Ahmed acted quickly, grabbing my arm, pulling me backward away from both women. We retreated several steps, putting distance between ourselves and them, buying precious seconds to regroup, strategize, figure out our next move. Unfortunately, Zara wasn't about to let us slip away so easily. Ignoring her injury, she charged forward, tackling Mrs. Khan, sending both women sprawling onto the ground, grappling fiercely, exchanging blows, curses flying faster than fists. The sight was surreal, almost comical, watching two people who'd spent weeks feuding over trivial matters suddenly turn on each other, revealing hidden depths of rage, betrayal, resentment, simmering beneath their polished facades. While they fought, distracted by mutual hatred, Mr. Ahmed seized the opportunity, dragging me further down the alley toward a rusted metal door partially hidden behind piles of discarded furniture. "This way," he urged, yanking it open, revealing a dimly lit staircase descending into darkness below street level. Without hesitation, we plunged inside, closing the door firmly behind us, muffling the sounds of violence fading into the background. Inside, the air smelled stale, damp mold clinging to the walls, slick with condensation. A single flickering bulb cast eerie shadows dancing across cracked concrete floors, guiding us deeper underground. "Where does this lead?" I whispered, afraid speaking louder might attract unwanted attention. "To safety, for now," Mr. Ahmed replied, cryptically, leading the way, confidently navigating twists, turns, dead ends without hesitation. Clearly, he'd explored these tunnels before, knew them intimately, suggesting he'd planned for situations like this long before today. After what felt like hours, though was probably closer to minutes, we emerged into a larger chamber illuminated by rows of fluorescent lights buzzing softly overhead. Crates, boxes, shelves stacked high filled the space, organized, neatly labeled, meticulously reminiscent of the warehouse we just escaped, except smaller, quieter, less chaotic. In the center stood a table covered in maps, blueprints, files, laptops, monitors displaying live feeds from various locations, including, most notably, the neighborhood above us. Someone had been watching everything, carefully documenting movements, interactions, patterns, analyzing data, predicting outcomes, controlling variables, ensuring nothing happened without their knowledge, consent, approval. It was chilling realizing how thoroughly we'd been manipulated, observed, studied like lab rats trapped inside an elaborate experiment designed to test human behavior under specific conditions. And worst of all, none of us had suspected a thing until it was too late. "Well," Mr. Ahmed said, breaking the silence, gesturing vaguely at the setup surrounding us. "Welcome to the real headquarters of Project Redtail." The underground chamber felt like stepping into the belly of a beast. A labyrinthine network of surveillance equipment humming softly with an eerie efficiency. Every screen displayed fragments of lives lived above ground. Mrs. Khan pacing her porch, Mr. Ahmed's backyard illuminated by faint moonlight, even my own face staring blankly as I reviewed drone footage earlier that night. It was invasive, suffocating, and utterly terrifying to realize how much control these people had exerted over us without our knowledge. Mr. Ahmed moved toward the table littered with files and gadgets, his expression grim but focused. He began sorting through papers, muttering under his breath, occasionally pausing to jot down notes on a scrap of paper. His movements were deliberate, methodical, like a man who'd rehearsed this moment countless times in his head, yet still couldn't shake the weight of its reality. "This is it," he said finally, spreading out a series of blueprints across the table. "The nerve center of Project Redtail. Everything they've done. All the manipulation, all the lies. It starts here." I stepped closer, examining the maps carefully. They depicted not just Maplewood Estates, but dozens of other neighborhoods scattered across the country, each marked with red circles labeled with codes like RT12, RT47, and so on. Beneath each location was a list of names paired with cryptic notes. Subject exhibits resistance tendencies, or ideal candidate for Phase 2. "What are these?" I asked, pointing at one such note attached to my name. "Profiles," Mr. Ahmed replied flatly. "Detailed analyses of every resident based on data collected through surveillance. Your habits, your weaknesses, your potential value to the project. Some are flagged for recruitment, others for elimination, depending on how useful they might be." "And me?" I pressed, feeling a chill creep up my spine. "You're special," he admitted, reluctantly meeting my gaze briefly before looking away. "Not just because of your CIA background either. You see patterns where others don't, question things most wouldn't dare to think about." That makes you dangerous, unpredictable. To them anyway. His words hung heavy between us, echoing ominously off the cold concrete walls. If what he said was true, then everything, the chickens, the drones, even moving to this neighborhood, had been orchestrated, deliberately designed to draw me into their web. But why? What made me so important? Before I could ask, another voice interrupted, cutting through the tension like a knife. Not bad detective work, boys. We spun around to find Zara leaning against the doorway, bloodied but defiant, her injured leg barely holding her upright. Behind her stood Mrs. Khan, equally battered, though no less determined, both women glaring daggers at us despite their obvious exhaustion. How did you? I started, stunned by their sudden appearance. The same way you found this place. Zara cut in, limping forward slowly, her eyes locked onto mine. By following breadcrumbs left behind, intentionally meant to lead curious minds exactly where they wanted them to go. Her revelation hit hard, knocking the wind out of me momentarily as realization dawned. We hadn't uncovered the truth. We'd walked straight into another trap laid meticulously by those pulling the strings from higher up. Who sent you? Mr. Ahmed demanded, stepping protectively in front of me, ready to defend if necessary. Zara smirked, bitterly shaking her head. Doesn't matter anymore, does it? The higher-ups won't tolerate failure. Not from me, not from anyone involved in this mess. Which means... She trailed off, letting the implications sink in fully. They'll come for all of us. Mrs. Khan finished, her voice trembling, slightly betraying fear beneath her usual bravado. Silence fell thick and oppressive, weighing heavily on everyone present. For once, none of us argued, disagreed, blamed, instead united by a shared sense of impending doom closing in rapidly. Whatever fragile alliances we'd formed earlier dissolved, replaced by mutual understanding, desperation, survival instincts kicking in, overriding pride, ego, loyalty. So what now? I asked, breaking the silence, my voice surprisingly steady considering the chaos swirling inside my head. We exposed them, Mr. Ahmed declared, firmly gripping the edge of the table, tightly, knuckles whitening with effort. All of it, the profiles, the experiments, the manipulation. We release everything publicly, make sure the world knows what's been happening right under their noses. But how? I countered, skeptical despite wanting desperately to believe him. Even if we manage to get the information out there, they'll deny it, discredit it, bury it faster than anyone can react. Not if we do it right. He insisted, pulling out his phone, scrolling through contacts until he landed on one specific name. There's someone I trust completely, someone who owes me big time. If anyone can help us take this operation down, it's her. He dialed quickly, waiting impatiently while the line rang. After several tense seconds, someone picked up, speaking rapidly in hushed tones too quiet for me to catch more than snippets. Mr. Ahmed nodded, occasionally interjecting with terse instructions before hanging up abruptly. She's in, he announced, turning back to face us, relief flickering briefly across his features. She'll meet us at the extraction point tomorrow morning, armed with resources, connections, media access, everything we need to blow this wide open. Assuming we survive till then, Zara muttered darkly, sinking into a nearby chair, wincing as pain shot through her leg. We will, Mr. Ahmed shot back, sharply, refusing to entertain doubt. Because we don't have a choice. For the rest of the night, we prepared, feverishly gathering evidence, backing up files, encrypting data, ensuring nothing could be traced back to us once released. Each task brought us closer to freedom, yet further from certainty, unsure whether justice awaited us, or something far darker. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, signaling the start of a new day, we emerged, cautiously blinking against the brightness, adjusting to life outside, shadows, temporarily banished by sunlight. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, hope, intertwined, inseparably bound together, forming a future impossible to predict yet inevitable nonetheless. And somewhere amidst the chaos, clarity struck, simple, yet profound enough to guide us forward regardless of outcome. Sometimes fighting for truth isn't about winning. It's about refusing to stay silent.